Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This will probably be the last video in the Herem series for the time being, and it should be relatively quick. I will respond to the arguments made by Luis regarding Deuteronomy 13. Here's what Luis had to say on the matter.
So first, I would need to find some instances of how this passage has been applied in in the actual historical books, because I know that there were times when certain cities were destroyed, but also God also made provisions for people who were righteous in them to be spared. We can get with that some other time, but let's look at the passage, the use of burnt offering here. So if you look closely, what is being burnt as an offering exactly? According to verse 17, what is being burnt as an olah, which is the Hebrew word, isn't the people, it's the spoils. So if you read verse 17 in its entirety, it says, gather all its spoil into the open square and burn the town and all its spoil as a olah to the Lord your God. So what is being offered as an olah is not people, it's the spoils, it's the shlala as it's mentioned in the Hebrew text. So the people may have been eliminated via Herem, but they were not being sacrificed via an olah. But the point behind the shlala is that it excludes human beings because they're already killed in the verse preceding that.
So the question ultimately is whether the whole burnt offering, as rendered by the ESV, in verse 16, included just the spoil, i.e. the material objects like gold and silver treasures, or the spoils and the city itself, and its people and animals. We already know that the city and its people and animals were put under the Herem. The question now is whether the city and its people and animals were being sacrificed to Yahweh. It seems clear to me, by the plain reading of the text, that sacrificial language is certainly used in reference to the banned city. Let's see if the scholarly sources agree. First, I noticed that the translation of the Targum uses very clear sacrificial language as well. It says that the city should be burned together with the spoil before the Lord your God. This should remind us of 1 Samuel 15, verse 33, when Samuel brutally hacked the Amalekite king Agag to pieces before the Lord in Gilgal. In a previous video, I discussed the sacrificial symbolism of this passage. The Kiel and Delish commentary also explains that the ban was for the whole town and all that was in it. This relates to men, cattle, and the material property of the town, and not to men alone. After killing the people and animals, the spoil was to be heaped together and burned along with the city. The language is crystal clear. It was not just the spoil that was being sacrificed as a whole burnt offering. It was the whole city itself. It was to be sanctified to Yahweh entirely. How much clearer does this text need to be for Luis to admit that sacrificial language is being used here? Luis also made a rather strange comment that the offering did not include the people and animals because they had already been killed beforehand.
So the people may have been eliminated via Herem, but they were not being sacrificed via an olah. But the point behind the shlala is that it excludes human beings because they're already killed in the verse preceding that.
This is a confusing statement. I would ask Luis whether a regular animal sacrifice in the Bible, such as a goat, was killed beforehand, or was it thrown alive into the fire? That would be brutal and unnecessarily cruel to the animal. Of course, we know that the Bible is clear that the animal was killed beforehand, cut into pieces, and then burned on the altar. Notice the language in Leviticus 1, verse 13. And the priest shall offer all of it and burn it on the altar. It is a burnt offering. Again, it seems pretty clear that the sinful city in Deuteronomy 13 was put under the Herem and sacrificed as a burnt offering. The language is eerily similar to Leviticus 1. Burn the city and all its spoil with fire, as a whole burnt offering to the Lord your God. It is thus a form of human sacrifice. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
وقل جاء الحق وزهق الباطل إن الباطل كان زهوقا